Welcome to The Shadow is the Light. I'm so excited to bring this to you. And we are diving into spiritual awakening, ascension, moving through our karma, looking at our shadows. Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. In my evolution, in my own spiritual evolution, there are things that have become more apparent and more important, is what I want to say. Because when we kind of bebop through life, let me know if you resonate with this. We start out with material goals, right? Rightfully so. We come into this ego. We start out with material goals. And along the way of moving through our journey, going after these material goals, that's our motivation, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the mechanism. Somewhere along the way, it starts waking something up in us. Amen. Somewhere along the way, we start to kind of realize, if we're on this spiritual journey path, if we're a seeker, we start to realize that there's more to this game than just attaining things, right? There's more to this game than just like hitting the goal, getting the whatever. I had like 8 things run through my head in that moment. Getting the business accolades, making the money, finding the partner. Like there's more to this game. And when we start to kind of wake up to this, in all transparency, shit starts getting weird, right? Because our old paradigm is essentially breaking up, right? So you might have experienced this yourself. You might have seen this play out in other people's stories where you chase the accolades. You do the things. You chase the things. You're like, I'm going to do this, and this. And then you do it. And then what? And then what? Right? You go after, we've seen it play out with like Olympic medalists, people who have had, this one sole goal, like one goal their whole life, solitary goal. And then when they finally achieve it, it's like their life loses meaning, right? And after that, that's where we're truly faced with who are we going to become here? What is the point? That's when we start waking up to there's more to this game. There's more to this game than just trying to achieve material things, right? There's more to this game than just checking the box of I did the goal. Again, nothing wrong with the goal. It's part of it. It's part of the game. But it's not the whole game, right? Okay, so we're talking today about the shadow is the light. So I'm going to lay out some context so that we can kind of really grasp this, right? Because these huge esoteric concepts, our mind has a bit of a hard time with, right? Our ego has a bit of a hard time with. So everything in our reality is polar. And what that means is that everything has an opposite, right? That's really easy for us. We're like black, white, right? Up, down, light, shadow. Got it, right? Everything has an opposite. But the way that I want you to think about this, oh my gosh, you guys, I got a little tiny whiteboard so that we can do our drawings. This is so exciting. Oh my God, I dropped the lid. Okay, so everything is polar. So you can think about like light, shadow, two opposites, right? Light, shadow, light, darkness, however you want to see it, two opposites. But here's how I want you to picture it. It's one whole, right? It's two sides of the same stick. So where there's light, there is shadow. Where there's shadow, there is light. Okay? So let's just do another one just for fun so that our brains can kind of take this in. Up and down, right? It's two sides of the same whole. Where there's up, there has to be a down. Where there's down, there has to be an up. They're connected, right? So now let's get even more esoteric. We have ego and we have soul. In polarity, which is where we live, They are connected. They are the same, right? So in our world, the earth realm is the only realm that has polarity that we know of. I mean, my goodness, right? We're talking about huge concepts here, but from what I understand, the earth realm is the only realm where we have polarity, meaning everything has its opposite, but its opposite is actually it. It's one and the same. So what it brings in the question is, one, why does this matter, right? And then two, the bigger question is, where are you focused? Where are you living? Where are you giving energy to? So there's an old fable, or what's that word? We'll go with fable, where there's two wolves. Robert makes fun of me for the way I say wolves. It's a hard word. There's two wolves. One of them is all of these like shadowy lower parts of yourself, the ego stuff, there's no love there. It's all fear. It's all survival. It's all like just about me. And then there's soul, which is oneness, connectedness, love, service, giving. It's all about we are one. Which one is going to dominate? And as the fable goes, the one you feed. It's the one you feed. Now, what this sets up, though, is a rejection of one side, which is not the way. It's not the way. And a lot of times, it's taught like this, but that's just like the first layer of getting into this. Rejection is not the way, because the moment I reject something, I'm giving it energy immediately, right? Which is then what creates this loop that we end up experiencing the same of the same over and over and over again. So if I reject the ego, I reject the shadow, I reject the wound, I reject my insecurities, I reject my conditioning, I reject my past. If I reject it, I'm attached to it. And it's going to keep amplifying. It's going to keep playing out. Are you guys with me? Click, click. So in my rejection, I'm actually attached to it. And I'm actually giving energy to the side that I don't want to experience. But this is the great paradox, right? So our question in this becomes, why am I so afraid of it? You feel that? Why am I so afraid of it? Why do I need to keep it at bay? Because in that question, you're gonna find what it has for you. So all shadow. And what we mean by shadow is like the parts of ourselves that we may not like, the parts of ourselves that have held us back, the parts of ourselves that we're trying to overcome, the parts of ourselves that maybe we're ashamed of. All of that is our shadow, right? And in that shadow, we're trying to just be in the light. Just be in the light. Don't look at that. Just be in the light. And that's willpower, right? And willpower, as we know, is not sustainable. So if I have a shadow and I'm like, let me break it down into something that's way more practical. So say I have whenever I get in like a room with a whole lot of people, there's a part of me that feels like I don't belong. They're going to judge me. They're not going to like me, right? That's a shadow. That's a shadow aspect. It's a focus of the self. It's a fear. It's a non-truth, right? Because it's my thought making up that I'm less than in some way, right? So that's a shadow aspect of ourselves. And our mind, our ego just wants to go, just be this, just be bold, just be loud, like pretend you're this. And it's like, and that's a viable strategy for a time, right? If you got to just like make it happen, you can do that. But the truth is that shadow is still there, right? Even if we try to fake our way, even if we try to pretend that I'm confident and I belong here, it's like that shadow aspect is still there. The shadow aspect is there because there's something in it that you need to get. There's something in it. Shadow is hidden light. Think about it just from a very practical standpoint. Shadow is hidden light. It's just a shadow. You see that? See the shadow? Does that mean that light does not exist? No. Light is all there is. Shadow is hidden light. So what we need to do is bring light to the shadow, because when we do that, we're going to get that part of us, that light that's in there, that part that's been hidden. It's been in the shadows. There's power there. There's parts of ourselves there waiting to come online, waiting to be awakened. They're hidden, right? They're hidden. But that's our human journey. And we're going to go full circle to just 12 minutes ago when we began this. The game is all about a whole lot more than just what you're able to do, right? We're uncovering parts of ourselves. This whole journey is about becoming more of who you are. Okay, so now we're going to back it up again, and I'm going to explain this in a more what the game is about kind of way. So if you can think about, you are light in a human body, right? We can all agree here. We're here in this room. We can all agree. You are a light being, which is a particle of the whole, of the all, in a human consciousness, in human consciousness, right? So you think about, like, these are our avatars, and your light is what animates it. And your light has a personality. Your light is individual. Even though you are part of the whole, your particle of light is individual. It has its personality. It has its chosen lessons. It has what it wants to grow through, like, right? It's yours. When you come into a human body, essentially what you're doing is choosing to layer up with shadows, layer up with ego, layer up with the lessons that you've got to get. And you're choosing the circumstances in which you're going to play out in your lifetime. So you can think about this like your light comes into a body, and it's like it puts on 18 coats, right? It's like, I'm taking on this one, and I'm taking on this one, and I'm taking on that one. I'm taking on all of this stuff. And my job as I move through this spiritual journey of being human is to remove the coats, right? Okay, so now that begs the question, why? Why would I do that? Think about it from the perspective of growth and strengthening your light muscle. The more coats you take on, it's like heavy weight. It's going to strengthen the muscle of the light underneath. And your job is to work through all of these layers, all of these parts of yourself that you've hidden from yourself in an effort to go and then overcome them, work through them, and it's going to build your light inside. So think about this from the perspective of different people's journeys. Think about your own journey. Think about the hardship you've seen some people go through. Think about the lessons that you've taken on, the lessons that you've seen other people take on. All of this, like a weighted blanket. Yeah. All of this is what their soul chose as their flavor of a workout, essentially, of a light workout. Not light, like light, of a workout. So we have all these coats on, and our goal is to become more of who we are. More light, stronger presence of light. And we take all this heaviness on so that we can go on a journey of strengthening ourselves. So as we move through, so think about and in the spiritual coach training program, we talk about this in a very broken down way. 0 to 7 years old, you're layering up. 0 to 7 years old, you're layering up. You're layering up through the conscious belief systems of your family, unconscious belief systems of your family. You're layering up through the environment in which you grew up in, society, culture, home life, neighborhood, whatever it is. You're layering up from whatever you hang on, I got to say this in a different way. Whatever is unfinished business from a past lifetime, you come already layered up with. It's karma, right? You're layering up 0 to 7. And you're going to spend, we've all lived this, right? You're going to spend the good first half of your life just playing that stuff out. It's working you out underneath, but you're not in a position yet to start taking it off unless you're like a child prodigy and you awakened at 8 years old. But most of us don't awaken until later in life, where we start to realize, oh, I am more than this circumstance. I am more than what I've been told. Meaning, like, you go throughout most of your life and you're kind of told who you are, right? Like, you can feel some things within you that, like, that's me, that's who I am. But a lot of what we do throughout our early lifetimes is play out what other people tell us we are, right? Like, you're hyperactive, you're selfish, you talk too much, you're a great athlete, you're athletic, you have a lot of energy, right? Like, we're told who we are from other people's observations, and that starts to build our identity, our sense of self, right? This is all part of the mechanism. It is supposed to be this way. Nothing has gone wrong. But as we start to move through life, and I don't know like when it happened for you guys, or I think everybody's journey is really different, but it's like if you're on a spiritual seeking path, you're like, wait a minute. Why am I living like this? And typically it comes because you're not happy. You followed the path. You checked the boxes. You achieved the things, still not happy. And that's that moment. That's that moment where you go, there's got to be more. There's got to be something beyond what I'm doing here, because innately we know life is meant to be good. Challenging, yes, but it's meant to be good, right? We're meant to have fun. We're meant to be in joy. We can feel that that's what it's supposed to be. So when we do everything right and life is not rewarding us, right? We start to question it. And that's the moment. That's the moment where you start to awaken that life is more, I am more than just these things I've been told about life, just this definition I've made up about life. And that's when the spiritual awakening journey starts to happen, because you start looking for that more. You start seeking, you start searching, you start questioning. And this is also when you start to kind of have that existential crisis, right? Because everything that you believe to be true, your foundation of life, starts kind of corroding, starts blowing up, right? Because the things that you believed, the things that you stood on, the things that you never questioned, now are coming into question. It's harder the more, how do I want to say this? Like, think about it from the perspective of somebody who grew up in very, very strict religion. And then they have this awakening moment. That religion might have been a very core foundation for their lifestyle. And now they're starting to question it, right? And that's a really hard moment. It's a hard moment to go through, because everything that you've built yourself on is now like the concrete is breaking up. And you're going, holy shit, like, who am I? What am I? What do I do? Where do I go? It's this existential crisis. I don't know who I am. But that, albeit difficult, is the greatest moment of your journey, because that is your light starting to push through all these layers. That's your true self starting to ask and say the things that are like, there's more. What else can we do? We came here for a reason. There's like this remembrance coming online. And although you don't have like the full picture, you don't have like a script, of what it is that you're supposed to be doing, you can feel that there is something more that you're supposed to be doing. And so it starts breaking up all these limitations. It starts breaking up all of these parts of yourself that you thought were so solid. And this is where we start to get into that insecurities, not feeling confident, right? So we may have had those things before, but they were kind of suppressed. You feel me on that? They were kind of suppressed. We were doing the strategy of like, just fake it till you make it. Like, yes, I feel insecure. Yes, I feel like I don't belong, but I can pretend like I do. And everything's fine. Eventually that's going to go away. It's like, no, it doesn't go away until you face it. So we have this moment of awakening, like there's something more to life. I am more than just the like, get the corporate job, marry the person, have the kids, and get a dog. Like, what's after that? What's next? And the thing is that for someone who is not, how do I want to say this? Like, when you're on a spiritually seeking path, that moment is still hard, but it's like you have something to move towards, right? You're like, I know that there's more. And I can feel this, like the energy is big. It's like you're more able to move towards the more. But for someone who is not on that, and then they achieve all these accolades, like we've seen it with like celebrities, people who have these huge accolades, they get all the money in the world, right? Which is money is the motivator for the majority of people until they get money. And then it goes, fuck, what do I do now? Right? Because it didn't bring to them what they thought it was going to bring. And that's where we see a lot of people, they get to that point and there's a whole world up here. So you can imagine, oh my God, I love it. You can imagine if most people's motivation is the material, and then they achieve the material, if they have not awakened beyond the ego, anything after that kind of feels like death, kind of feels like, what's the point, right? So think about it like this. You have, this is like the realm of survival. And this is the realm of light, purpose, and soul. Okay. You guys love my handwriting. Survival, light, purpose, and soul. Okay. So we have like this whole world where the majority of the world is existing, right? Majority of people are in survival. In survival, the motivation, the main motivation is money, right? There's nothing wrong with this, by the way. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just not the end all be all. So say somebody is here and their motivation is money, right? And so say here is like the most money they've ever made, to the point where they're like, I've done it, right? And they get to this point, but they thought that this would make them feel a certain way. They thought it would make them feel, I've done it, enlightened, everything's beautiful, right? And there might be like a moment of that. But then they go, oh, well, shit, now what? Right? Now what? So someone who hits this moment, who has not been exposed to or available for what's more after that, because what's happening here is that the ego has done its thing, right? You have achieved what the ego told you that you should achieve. And after that, awakening begins. Because after you have the money and money is no longer a motivator, if you're still in the ego, what the ego will do is sabotage you back down. And then you'll have to do it again. You see that? But if we get to this point and we say, okay, there's more, there's something more. This is where your purpose, your true purpose, starts to come online. This is where it's like, okay, I've achieved everything that's material, right? There's no more material that I can get that's going to make me feel some sort of way. But by the way, we see this, right? We see celebrities with 8 million cars. People with so much money, they don't know what to do with it. So they're buying the next thing, buying the next thing, buying the next thing, looking for that feeling, trying to fulfill that sensation. Or they take a south route where they end up traumatizing the human body through drugs and over excessive use of alcohol and all of that, right? Because they're wanting to feel something. And when the ego hits this point and it doesn't have something else for you to go after to give your life meaning, then it starts to go through that death process, right? And it doesn't know how to function beyond that. This is because we have to awaken the soul side, polarity, right? We've got to get on the other side. There's something more. There's something bigger. There's light pouring in like never before. And so at this point is where you actually get to know your true self. That's where you actually get to know your true self. Now, can you get to know your true self before you achieve all of the material? 100%. 100%. And I would even say like you're ahead of the game, because your true self is going to lead you on a path of what I call total fulfillment or salvation. I'm going to have to get better handwriting if I'm going to be doing this a lot more. Total fulfillment or salvation. Salvation to me, I read this in A Course in Miracles one time. Salvation to me is the path that hits on all levels. In the Lightworker Society, we call this God's path. God's path versus your fear path. Fear path, survival path is like, it's all about me. It's selfish. It's like, I've got to get this to make sure I'm okay. God's path is one of service and putting out into the world. It's your dharma. It's what you came here to do. And it will hit on all cylinders. It will take care of you and more, right? But our ego says, I got to get mine first. I got to get mine first, right? So if we're aware of what we feel like we're here on this earth to do, we can feel that bigger purpose that's beyond the achievement, check the boxes, beyond the material, then we're doing well, right? And I would even say that like that's happening more than it ever has before. You feel me? I mean, it's still not the majority of the world. The majority of the world is still trying to feel valid through our things, but it's happening more, right? Like we see consciousness awakening. We see people wanting to do something for the world, give in a bigger way, right? Which is really, really cool. But the main point of this is that once you get to this part, that's where you actually find yourself. That's where you discover like the true you. Have you ever thought about that? Like, what is my motivation? Why would I do what I do if there's no material goal? Do you know what I mean? And this is where those cliche questions come in. Like, if you had all the money in the world, if you had all the money and all the time, then what would you do? And it's a valid question. Like, if you can answer that, you are finding your true path. If it was not about making money, and it was not about like gaining in some way, what would you do? Those are the questions that really start to like get into the mind, because the mind is all about survival, right? The mind and the ego and that part of ourselves, that reptilian brain is all about survival. And so it's constantly on this hustle wheel for things to survive, to live a better physical life, which is fine, except it's only like this teeny tiny little portion of who you are. And so if I can ask the question, if I had all the money in the world, if it was never about money and it was never about running out of time, what would I do every day? What would be my motivation? And you can feel it, right? You feel that pull. It's so strong. Even if you don't have it totally identified as to what it is, it's like a deep reverberation. You know what I mean? Like how an earthquake begins at the core of the earth and then it shakes everything outside of it. It's like a deep reverberation, a deep, like solid strength when you start to ask that question. what would I do? What would I do? Right? So we're deep, aren't we? Let's see. Aaron said, so can we come in and out of purpose and survival? Sometimes I feel that way. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And in fact, the wobble is part of the ascension process. Oh, good question, Aaron. Good question. The wobble is part of the ascension process. So think about this. If you have started on this pathway of there's more, and I know there's more, and I want to become that more, but then yet the ego is kind of pulling you back this way, and it's saying like, but survive and this and be fearful. And what about that, right? You've got this kind of push-pull thing happening. You're in the in-between of the polarity. So think about it with our polarity aspects. If I'm just starting to kind of move towards my purposeful path, I'm just starting to identify more with soul, which, by the way, like, not the easiest journey. Not the easiest journey, right? Because we're programmed so hard. So if I have ego on one side and then I have soul on the other side, and say I've been operating here in survival for a really long time, and I'm just starting to awaken to move towards soul, as I'm being called, right? That's the calling feeling. It's like, I have to. I don't know why, but I have to. Like, that feeling is that deep remembrance of who you are. So say you start to walk, here's like my little guy here. You start to walk in the journey, you know, like you're here, you're here, you're here. Soul is a million times stronger than ego. So it's pulling you forward, but you see how you're still close to this side, right? So it still has like a pretty solid grasp on you. So your job in this, and this is beautiful because it's going to lead into the shadow as the light and what we're talking about today. Your job is to look at the parts of you that are attached to this side. And it's always going to come down to a fear of some sort. Like, why am I attached to this? Why do I not just go? Right? There's like an anchor. There's something holding you over here. And that's where our shadow work comes in. Because shadow work is not like, let me go into the depths of myself. I mean, it kind of is. But shadow work is like, I want to go. I want to step into this like expansive, magical light being where I'm doing what I came here to do. I'm fulfilling my dharma. I'm seeing the magic. I'm seeing the challenge. I'm rising to the occasion. Like, we want to be that side. Amen. And there's something in us that says, but you can't, because you have to do this. You have to do this. Right? So what we've got to look at is like, why am I so attached to that? Why do I not trust this? Even though it feels expansive. Hey, it feels beautiful. It feels like I have the perfect vision in my mind of everything that I want at that next level, right? But there's something in me that says, but you have to do this. And that's our addiction, our attachment. So attachments, a lot of times people think like something is attached to you. Never, 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 never. Write it down. Nothing can attach to you and hold you down. It is always you holding on to it. That's like a hard, like in the face kind of thing, but it's true. So let me think of an example that, okay, so say you have worked really, really hard your whole life. You've kind of been addicted to being a hard worker, right? So if you have this great work ethic, maybe to your own detriment, and soul is calling you to ease, flow, purpose, dharma, but your ego says, no, because the only way to get there is to like head down on the grindstone here. Like, you have to do this. You have to do this. It's like there's an attachment to my identity of I work hard. And a lot of times that attachment and that identity piece, the I work hard piece it's like, I'm not valid if I don't work hard. You see what I'm saying? I'm not proving myself if I don't do this. And meanwhile, soul and this path of enlightenment, this path of flow, I think about it like, the air current that like when birds migrate, they get into the air current and they don't have to work as hard and it carries them 20 times faster. That's like our path of soul, right? But our ego is like, no, you got to walk there. You can't fly. You can't just float there. You got to walk. You got to prove yourself. You got to earn it. You got to show it, right? So it's like these two parts of ourselves. Well, if my identity has been based in this, then everything in me is going to fight for it because it's who I am. You feel me on this? It's who I am. Who am I if I'm not working hard? Who am I if I'm not proving myself? How am I going to get validation from the world, from others around me if I'm not doing this? So you see the attachment, very, very attached to this, even though that's the easier way. That's the way that's going to lead to everything you want so much easier. We're attached to this and we're like, I'm going to walk there. I'm migrating to the south of Africa by walking. We get attached in our identity. So we've got to look at why my identity is based in that. Why am I so attached to keeping that identity? Is there something bigger calling me to more, right? Because this is very, very limited, isn't it? Can't really get anywhere really quickly. Can't really do anything really big. You're going to run out of time, right? So that's another aspect of this ego versus soul. When you're moving into soul, time becomes less dense. It's less linear, where ego density is very linear, right? And it's like the fear of running out of time is very loud and you can only have so much time in the day, right? It's very, very dense. But once you start to ascend into light, time becomes malleable. It expands. It's different. It's just different. It's faster, but like there's more happening. So in our example of I work hard, this doesn't mean that you're not doing stuff up here in the soul air current of ease. It doesn't mean that. I want you to think less about how much you do, meaning it's I work hard, and think more about it from the perspective of the energy and what it feels like. Because when you're in flow, and you've been here before, every single human has had this experience. When you're in flow, you might be doing a lot, but it's easy. You love it. It doesn't have that pressurized feeling, right? It doesn't have that struggly feeling. So you might be doing a lot up here, but it's just easy. You love it. It just happens. It's flow. We're down here. It's like, it's arduous. You're pushing, you're forcing, you're struggling, all of this stuff. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's an energy more than an action, right? One of the things that we say in my world all the time is that you can take the right action in the wrong energy and not get where you want to go, right? Because if I take the right action in the wrong energy, I'm only going to manifest more of that same energy. So this is something else we talk about in the spiritual coach training program. Action manifests the energy you're in. Not action creates the result you want. No. Action brings to manifested reality the energy you're in. You with me? So if I take action from I've got to prove myself, I've got to work hard and get my validation from the world, that action is only going to manifest more of an experience of I need to prove myself. You see how it like goes in on itself. It's just a repeat over and over and over again. Versus if I take the same action, but in an energy of outward giving, service, I'm so happy to be here and be doing this, then that's going to create more of an experience of I'm so happy to be here doing this. I'm serving the world. Do you see what I'm saying? Same action, different energy. So whatever energy you're in is what your action is going to manifest. And we see this difference all the time, right? You see people who are hustling their ass off, putting in the work, but it's miserable and it's hard and it's struggling and it's like they're barely moving. It's like, and that's the other thing too, in ego, shit's slow. The more dense you are, and what I mean by dense is like light versus density. What is a good way to explain this? You can think about it like trying to move, like if you're underground, moving through dirt or moving through water. Like there's going to be an easier flow, same direction, but it's going to be an easier flow or moving in the air current, right? Than trying to like carve your way through dirt and rock. Does that make sense? So the more dense, the more particles, the more matter, less light, more matter, it's going to be harder to do anything. Like you're not going to get very far with your action as when you take an action in light from a different energy. It's like one action might propel you like a million times further than what one action would do down here. So we got to look at our attachments as to why am I staying down here? What is my problem? Why am I staying in here? And this is the every shadow, every density, every wound, every insecurity, every part of ego has something for you that's hidden light. So we've got to look at like, what is my attachment? Because there's healing there. And in the healing, we're going full circle. In the healing, what you're doing is taking off one of those coats, taking off a layer of density. You got it? So like when I'm here and I'm like, okay, I'm going to step into full ownership of my life, my energy, my actions, and my creations. I'm going to come into full ownership, which is the first step, right? We can't get anywhere blaming other people for our lives. I'm going to take full ownership of my life and everything that has occurred. I can look at it from that perspective and I can say, okay, I know there's a better way. I know there's a higher way. I know there's something calling me to just like this expand, like you can feel it, right? This expansion, this light, like life is meant to be good. Life is meant to be joyous. Why am I in the muck? I'm going to own it. And then I'm going to say, okay, what am I attached to down here? And you can, you know, and obviously it's easier when you understand the whole mechanism or you're working with somebody, a coach that knows this whole mechanism. But if you can identify like what we did in this example, I'm really attached to proving myself through working hard. Okay, why? And as you start to do that healing work, which we don't have enough time to go into the healing work today, that is what the 6-month training is for. But if I do that healing work, then I'm going to uncover my attachment. And that's when I'm able to release it, which is taking a coat off, becoming less dense. And in that, I will rise. And then we just keep doing that until we're fully in that air current of life. Now, even in the air current of life, again, I just want to like really iterate, you're not doing anything. It's just joyous. You love it and it works, right? And you'll still hit some air bumps. You'll still hit some pockets that are challenging, that kind of throw you off a little bit, but you have more of an ability at that level to come back to your center, to who you are and what you're here to do. You follow? So we're gonna, like, life is life, you know, it's not about trying to change life. It's about changing ourselves. It's about becoming more of who we are and in that strengthened state, because again, we layered up with these coats voluntarily, right? Voluntarily. Desi said, ego weight training for the soul has helped my brain so much. Yeah. You can think about them like your vibration builders, right? Vibration builders. So if I want to be here, and this is a certain level of vibration, a higher frequency of vibration, and I'm here, then I've got to build my vibration, build my light in order to vibrate here. This is when we talk about frequency levels. Vibrations can only vibrate at the same rate together. So if I'm vibrating here and this is here, I have to build my vibration to get there. This is why we face challenges. Like we go, universe, why? Right? Why am I going through this? These are your vibration builders. Your challenges that you face at the level you're at today is your vibration builder so that you can vibrate here. It's like in the I don't know if it says it in the Bible or not, but it's more of a like Christian based idea that when you ask God for strength, he's going to deliver to you a situation that you have to be stronger in. Right. And we're like, that's not what I meant, God. Right? But that's really how it goes, because we have free will. We are autonomous in this journey. We've chosen the whole thing, right? And we're choosing the journey that we're walking. Our job is to become aware of that. Because if I'm not aware of that, if I'm not aware that I chose it, and I'm not aware that I am autonomous, I have the ability to choose my journey and how I'm going to show up, and realize that everything that is showing up is for me so that I can build my vibration in this level. If I'm not, then I'm still in karma. Karma is a repeat of energy. Karma is, it's going to like run your life until you realize that you are more than what is happening to you. You feel me on that? Because if I don't come into that sovereign space that I am me and nothing has control over me, before that, it's almost like you're being put into a dryer and it's just tumbling you around, right? Just tumbling you around. You're like, what is happening? But the moment that you realize that you at any point in time can get out of the dryer and then walk your life in a different way, that's when you come into your spiritual sovereignty, your autonomous state. So we want to realize that everything that is happening because we are choosing it. We are more than the situation that is. And so when I can start to kind of create some separation from my experience to observation of what is happening, rather than I am what is happening, we're observing what is happening. Now you can start to do that healing work to see where you're attached, where you're identifying, and then you can start to shift and change it. You're not going to change it overnight. This is a journey. Get out of the dryer. There's another t-shirt quote. Yeah. Get out of the cosmic dryer. But truly, right? But when you start to awaken, and this is like the other side of it, you start to, so there's a few things, and we won't go too deep into it right now, but people will trigger you into your awakening. Circumstances will trigger you into your awakening, like all planned, all pre-planned by your soul. So you might have someone who comes into your life, good or bad, who will trigger you into there's more. You might have someone come into your life who will trigger all of that suppressed stuff that you've been trying to fake it till you make it your way out of. You feel me? So you can't get out of facing the muck, because the muck is the anchor that's holding you down here and you want to go here. So we have to look at the muck. You got to look at the shadow. You got to bring light to it. It's not I'm rejecting it, because rejecting it gives power to it. It's not am I rejecting it. It's like I will stop, stand, and face it. What do you have for me? What do I need to understand about this? What do I need to understand about myself in this? And there's, I think that that's a skill set in itself, to observe what is happening inside of you without judging yourself for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, the way that I view it is there's my soul and then there's my human. And my human, like the body keeps score kind of vibe, right? The human has programs in it. The human has thoughts and belief systems that are programmed into the cells. And it's my job to recognize that that's not who I am, but it is what I'm experiencing. You with me? So this is why, like, you can have all this understanding about soul and the esoteric realm and our spiritual awakening, like you can have all this understanding and still be operating unconsciously in a belief system, and then discover it later, right? Like, you guys who have been with me for years, you've seen me do this. Like, I awakened to this, oh my gosh, I was believing that, and I couldn't see it for the longest time until I could see it. But this is like the journey, you know what I mean? So if I can create a little bit of separation from me, true me, who I actually am, the light that I am from the human experience, then I can observe what my human is processing through, what my human is going through from a non-judgmental place. Because if I like, oh, you should be better, well, then I'm still here, right? Because soul doesn't judge. Soul is just the witness, the observer. We see this in all spiritual texts, right? Become the observer of what is happening, because this is the program you signed up for, right? This is the journey you signed up for. So if I create a little bit of separation, then I can see when I'm sad, when I'm going through an insecurity, when I'm healing or whatever it is, I can observe it from a non-judgmental state and say, okay, what's happening here? Why am I experiencing that? What's in this for me, right? And the beauty of this is that the less dense, the more you take off these layers, the more you become, which is that authenticity. And the more that you're in your authentic self, one, the easier life becomes, because you become this beautiful magnet for everything that is that vibration. And two, you feel the ease of you, because you're not carrying all this weight anymore. It's like light, freedom, which is the whole thing that's calling you this way anyway, right? So point being, material goals will pull you up to that line. And then from there, it's going to ask of you, what's next? What's beyond the material? You can get ahead of the game by asking what's beyond the material now, knowing you can know, but it's going to be a journey of trusting it, knowing that if I wake up to what's beyond the material for this lifetime, all the material as I move towards that is going to be taken care of. But I'm going to have this sort of push-pull aspect. If I'm still really attached in the ego, I'm going to have this push-pull aspect of like, but we have to take care of this. We have to do that to pay our bills, right? We have to blah, 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 blah. It's a very narrow outlook on life when there's so much more to pay the bills, which was a very survival ego state. There's so much, there is more ways than just the one way that your ego is caught up on to take care of all the earthly things. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Okay, my loves. I hope this was enlightening for you. I hope it brings you to that more awakened state, even if it's just a millimeter. Like 1 millimeter shifts are huge, 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 huge. Moral of the story, this entire journey is about who you become, but it's like a remembering at a higher level of who you are, right? So you come in as light, you're strengthening, you forget that you're light, you're strengthening it the entire time. And then once you take all those coats off, you become you at a bigger level of you, which is the entire point for why we're here. And along the way, we're going to face some stuff, but it's supposed to be an adventure. It's supposed to be fun. I know it doesn't always feel fun, but it's supposed to be fun. I love you so much. Thank you for being here live. Those of you who are live, and if you're catching the replay, let me know. And I will see you soon. Goodbye, my love.